Okay, so you've probably seen the headlines. The massive antitrust case, US versus Google, finally wrapped up. And wow, on the surface, it looked like a huge win for Alphabet. The market definitely reacted that way. But as we're about to break down, the celebration might be a little premature. And I mean, the reaction was immediate. The second the news hit, Alphabet stock just shot up 9%, straight to a new record high. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief from investors.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Is Google finally out of the woods? Wall Street was popping the champagne, for sure. But if you actually dig into the ruling, the answer gets a lot more complicated. The danger is far from over.
But first, let's get into why everyone was so thrilled in the first place. You gotta look at what the judge actually decided, and maybe more importantly, what he decided not to do. This one line pretty much sums it all up. US v. Google ended with a whimper, not a bang. Now, don't get me wrong, the court did find that Google search is a monopoly and that it illegally boxed out the competition. But it stopped way short of the really harsh punishments the Department of Justice was pushing for. Google basically dodged the biggest bullet. And here's the key. Judge Mehta decided against the so-called death penalty for a tech giant, breaking up the company. No order to sell off Chrome, no spinning off the Android business. For a company the size of Alphabet, this was a massive, massive victory, which kind of begs the question, why the light touch?
And this, for me, is where the story gets really fascinating. The reason the judge was so lenient wasn't just about Google's lawyers. It was because the entire tech landscape had been turned on its head by, you guessed it, AI.
Just think about the timeline here. When this whole trial kicked off back in late 2023, Google was pretty much the only game in town for search. But by the time we got to the punishment phase in 2025, the world looked totally different. Suddenly, you have these AI-powered engines like ChatGPT and Perplexity showing up as the first real competition Google has had in years. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The judge said it himself, right there in the ruling. The emergence of Gen I changed the course of this case. So, in a weird twist of fate, the very technology that might be the biggest long-term threat to Google's search dominance is what saved it from getting broken up by the courts. But the story doesn't stop there. Because buried inside this win are several little time bombs, 3 really significant dangers that it seems like a lot of investors just completely overlooked in all the excitement. We're talking about 3 major risks that are still very much on the table for Alphabet. First, a new data sharing requirement. Second, a key part of the ruling that isn't exactly set in stone. And third, a whole other antitrust trial that's looming on the horizon, this time focused on its ad business.
Okay, so first up, data sharing. The judge has ordered Google to give its rivals access to some of its raw anonymous search data. Now, this might sound boring, but trust me, it's a huge deal. For years, Google's biggest weapon has been its unmatched view of what people are searching for and clicking on. This ruling basically hands a piece of that secret sauce directly to its new AI competitors.
I mean, for companies like Perplexity and OpenAI, who are desperately trying to build their own map of the internet, getting this data could be the key to everything. It helps level the playing field in a way that poses a direct threat to Google's core business. All right, on to danger number 2. And it all starts with this number, $20 billion. That's how much Google paid Apple back in 2022. And it was for one very, very important thing. It's for their massive revenue-sharing deal. You know, the one that makes sure Google is the default search engine on every single iPhone, iPad, and Mac. The judge let this deal continue, which, again, was seen as a huge win for Google and, frankly, a big relief for Apple, too. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. The judge's decision on that $20 billion deal, it's not permanent. He left himself a little backdoor to change his mind down the road.
He basically put Google on the clock. He said that if over the next 6 years the search market doesn't see some real, substantial competition return, he reserves the right to step back in and kill that Apple deal after all. So that threat is still very much alive.
And that brings us to danger number 3, the next trial. The search case might be done, but the DOJ has another monster of a lawsuit waiting in the wings, and this one targets Google's ad tech business. Now, you might look at this chart and think, it's less than 9% of their revenue. But its real value is so much bigger than that. You see, its value isn't just in the direct revenue it brings in. This business gives Google a complete 360-degree view of the entire digital ad ecosystem. If they were forced to sell it off, it wouldn't just be losing that 8.7% of revenue. It would be like flying blind in a huge part of the market, which would hurt the profitability of their much bigger search and YouTube ad businesses. And in this next case, the DOJ is asking for exactly that, a full sell-off. So you put it all together, and while Google and its investors are taking a victory lap over the search trial, it is crystal clear that the company's legal battles are far from finished. This is really just setting the stage for the next chapter. So let's quickly recap what's coming up. First, that ad tech trial is still on the way and a forced sale is on the table. Second, the DOJ could still appeal this search ruling and try to get tougher penalties. And third, that 6-year clock is officially ticking on Google's most important partnership with Apple. So, when you step back, here's the real takeaway. Yes, Google absolutely won a major battle by avoiding a breakup of its search empire. But with new AI rivals being handed its data and a whole other antitrust fight just around the corner, you have to wonder, is the company about to walk into a much larger and much more complicated war for its future?